Before we get going into your Hockey IQ podcast episode, I want to thank our sponsor, Rapid Shot. Rapid Shot is the smart shooting lane. It's like a batting cage for hockey players. Very cool. Tracks your shot in 3 ways: accuracy, shot speed, and reaction time. Easy to use. Actually, I used it when I played and was growing up. Very easy. Simply scan your phone in, select your settings, and start shooting. You can see your stats on the app and online. You can check them out at rapidshot.com. Great small business. I actually grew up with one of the owner's sons and have played with all the family members by now, just in local pickups here in Ohio. Very cool local business. Awesome product. I love it. I know quite a few NHLers have them in their homes. A lot of D1 programs have it at their rinks. So you have to check this out. Rapidshot.com. Check it out. Rapid Shot, thank you so much for sponsoring our podcast. On the Hockey IQ podcast, we bring on Kane Lafranchise. Just kidding. All right, give everyone your proper pronunciation now that I've purposely butchered it.
Kane Lafranchise.
Kane Lafranchise. He is the franchise here. So excited to have you on, man. This has been a long time coming. I've seen your stuff for a hot second from afar, and I'm glad that we're able to finally connect and talk a little bit further off air. And man, this is going to be a great episode.
Perfect. Thanks for having me.
Well, I'm one to cut the crap and get right to it. So I want to start in your playing days, and we'll get on to your coaching days. So I'm curious how you went about developing yourself as a player. So starting from your earliest ages, catching the bug, were you a multi-sport athlete? Did you focus early? How did you go about, like, here's how I'm going to develop my talents, and et cetera?
Yeah. So for me, I, grew up in Edmonton, Alberta, and, fortunate enough that a lot of the environments I was with, or just at school, classmates, everyone was kind of multi-sport at that time. So for me, it was hockey, soccer, played lacrosse for a while, golf, everything. So I was always into a variety of sports. And then probably around, 12, 13, started getting more into club hockey here with CAC locally, playing Bantam AAA there, and still playing other sports, obviously. But as I got further, it kind of became, hockey had to be the focal point for me. And I wanted it to be, because I leaned that way for a while. So yeah, for me, my going through minor hockey here, it was just hockey from 13 on became everything I wanted to do. I was a bit of an undersized defenseman, but I could skate really well. So problem solving for me was something I had to do early on. And when I got into junior, I had to make that decision there at 16, what route I wanted to take. And for me, realizing I was just, smaller, need more time, decided to go with the NCAA path, which obviously helped me quite a bit.
Awesome. So for you, was development just like showing up to the rink and doing team practices? Were you doing extra things on your own? Did you watch, were you a YouTube age kid where you could just hop on YouTube and watch videos and learn that way? Were you paying skills coaches? How did you go about actually developing your talents?
For me, I always liked, and it honestly, it's what I do a lot now, is watching video. I always liked watching more in detail when I watch other games. Growing up as a kid, I was a big Doug Weight fan. So I always loved watching, what Doug Weight could do with the puck and different things like that. And I always thought, I didn't just watch the game to watch the game. I tried to look for different things even defensemen were doing. And then the other part of it, we actually had a guy here randomly, but his, Christensen and his son Eric played in the NHL, and he ran a skills kind of company, but it was out of his garage in Leduc, just outside Edmonton here. And he had, at that point in time, like, he had all these different kinds of, like, we were working on flipping pucks in a milk crate. We were working on shooting top right, 100 shots. We were balance beam puck handling. Like, he was kind of almost like ahead of his time, and he did a lot of these things with his son. And he had a brief stint with Pittsburgh too, but I mean, I put a lot of that time into that, and I thought that helped me quite a bit, just build puck confidence. And even back then, like he was always eyes up. Like there would be times I'd be puck handling and he would, bounce like basketball or something that you'd have to avoid. So I did a lot of that stuff, which was pretty cool. But for me, I was just always watching games and trying to find little intricacies through it, or how D-men, got the puck out, or what they did that separated them from other defensemen. And I think that really helped me a lot.
I had no idea this was going to go to Eric Christensen. My family's all from Pittsburgh, so I've watched quite a few Penguins throughout the years, all the way back to '88, even before I was born.
Yeah.
Watching old VHS tapes my dad did, where you got the old commercials of, it was nothing but beer commercials back in those days. Iron City, because it was the Penguins. But yeah, so I've seen the good times, the cups. I've seen the lows when Dick Tarnstrom was the leading goal scorer, and no one knows who Dick Tarnstrom is. And the good times, and Eric Christensen, for whatever reason, I just thought he was like the shootout specialist, like had some good hands and some like sneaky little details within his game. A lot of fun. And I mean, when you're Atlanta Thrasher, like you are already a legend in some capacity for that.
Yeah, of course.
That's awesome. I had no idea that's where we're heading with this. This is fantastic.
Yeah.
I think the key for me and what you just said here was like, in your journey, like you wanted to do more. Like you had this desire. It wasn't like, it doesn't sound like you were pushed into it. You were ready for it and wanted to do it. And you're taking it on. First off, and then second off, like you had the desire to build the confidence. And I think this is critical for players, like building puck confidence. Like you're only as good as your puck handling abilities in many capacities, because you can't really play hockey unless you control it. You're just otherwise just playing like ping pong almost with yourself. Like, where's the ball going?
Yeah.
Where's the puck going? So I think that's probably a major thing, is having that puck confidence where you can now think the game and play the game, rather than being held back by the technical abilities of not being able to handle a puck smoothly, where that's nothing, I got it, okay, now I'm looking for pressure, or I'm looking beyond pressure to my options, like all of those things. I'm assuming that that's been critical for your development. It's just having a solid puck confidence, which then allows you to go further.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think you said it right there. I mean, when you have that puck confidence, and like me growing up, especially being smaller, like the last thing I needed to worry about with pressure was, handling a bobbled puck or playing against myself. I needed to have that confidence with the eyes up. And I thought that's why that work I did was so beneficial. Because once I had that confidence, like you said, and we talked about it before we started doing this, we were talking about looking past pressure. And it's one thing to be able to know where pressure is, know your exit routes, and where you're going to go with your feet. But I think the next layer with puck confidence is being able to have the puck under control, see pressure, but look beyond pressure. And that was a big thing for me. Like even into my last years in the American Hockey League, like I was making plays that were sometimes only 5 feet, 6 feet, 7 feet, but it was just past a layer of pressure. But it helped, me play less in my end, and I was able to transition pucks. And that's why I kept getting contracts and kept playing for as long as I did, because of something I did or was working on when I was 15, 16, 17 years old, and really put a lot of my time into, because like you're right, puck confidence is everything. If you can't control the puck, a lot, especially with your eyes up, the game becomes extremely difficult. It's hard to thrive in a game that is constantly, it's always changing, and it's always has its challenges and adversities. So yeah, that was big for me, learning that and working on that early and often.
Yeah, and I love what you just said there. It was like, it was a puck confidence, but you're making plays. It wasn't just puck confidence. Oh, I can dangle everyone, or I'm going to try to dangle everyone. So you often see that with puck wizards, is they over lean into the skill set of having the puck confidence and the ability to be a wizard with the puck, where it actually detracts because they do it so much, rather than seeing it as it is part of my skill set and how do I utilize it, rather than just lean into it as like, this is how I play. This is more so about how I'm able to problem solve. I can work triangles. I can do little pop plays, or I can just rip a long, stretch pass down the ice like Eric Carlson over entire defense. Like,
Yeah.
that's the critical element. It's not confidence and confidence to just try to undress guys. It's more so just controlling it so you can make the simple play that's there, or make a quick play when it needs to be done, rather than, oh, I've overhandled it, now I'm stuck. Or like, my personal favorite with young players is like, they go for as long as they can. They've run out of good options. Now I'm going to look to make a play. Like, you should be able to look for a play right away, whether it be under handles or not.
Yeah, the constant cutbacks where they keep moving and puck handling and just getting into worse and worse trouble. Yeah, and that's a big one. And honestly, you're spot on with that too. It's that puck confidence of being able to, it's not trying to beat someone one-on-one constantly and leverage that skill, which that catches up to you, as you know, as you get older. Can't do it as easily as you used to. But the second part is just, making those plays. Like, we almost, with, dynamic hockey and everything we do back here in Edmonton in our academy at NAX, it's almost helping players, especially when I work with defensemen, underhandling the puck, like moving feet around the puck as you get to it on a retrieval, and just scanning, seeing your play and making that play. And as you're skating back and taking pressure on a transition, not puck handling, having the puck on your hip, underhandling, and then you're ready to make a play, whether it's to your left, right, use a deceptive play. That's the kind of confidence we're trying to build with, puck confidence. But it's almost like we're trying to teach underhandling it to be more efficient and relying on your reads and your ability to scan the ice and pressure.
Awesome. So when did you decide to hang it up? When was like that moment you're like, all right, time to move on and do something else? I always say everyone ends up in adult league or beer league at some point, just a matter of when. For example, we have the Ohio State Buckeyes here, and even with their football players, 5-star guys are like 100% going to be like first round pick. They're still preparing them for life after football. Like, we just don't know when it's going to happen with hockey. It could be next year, it could be 5 years, could be 20 years, could be after 30-year career, juniors and professional. But there's the life after. So, like, when was that moment for you, and when were you like, all right, I'm ready for the next challenge?
It was kind of the second last year I had, so it would have been 2016-17. I had a really strong year that year in Bridgeport. I was fortunate enough to play with, we had a great decor at that time. We had Devon Tays, Ryan Pulak, Scott Mayfield, even Kyle Burrows on Vancouver now, and a few others, and guys that are still, like Sebastian Aho that's playing tonight, and I think he scored against the Oilers. But he, playing with those guys, it was awesome, and I got to play the entire year just because Pulak hadn't quite reached that level yet, and him and I played majority of the season together, and it was awesome. And I had a lot of fun that year, and really good plus minus. I was playing some of my best hockey, and then the next season it was pretty good. Like, I had a good year still, but I realized that, and as you know, hockey becomes a younger and younger and younger game, and wasn't quite the player I was the year before. And I knew that. And the other thing too is my wife, she had a master's program that she just completed. She had lived with me for a year and a half, 2 years, and she had really good opportunity here. And it just made sense for us as a family that, I was chasing something that probably, I don't know if I ever would have reached, and I had a couple opportunities that just didn't work out. And I was always comfortable, ready to move home. And I think it was just, everything kind of came to a head. We felt comfortable, and we just kind of made the decision, and I wanted to move on to the next chapter. But, before I, got sent down again and was kind of still trying to play until I was 35, 40, too late. So I just wanted to get out, move on to something else, and put my efforts into that, which became still in hockey, and it was player development.
Well, I bet your back's going to be thanking you here for the next 40 years.
Yeah, absolutely.
With that life decision. So that's fantastic. So I'm great that you were always comfortable with that. I feel like a lot of people struggle with it and don't prepare for it. But I'm glad you found a spot here. I'm curious to hear about your evolution as a coach. Obviously you've been doing this for about 5 years now, maybe a little bit longer while you're still playing, but like, this has been your focus here for the last 5 years. What does that evolution look like from day one, year one, your 2, and now here you're 5 plus. What does that look like?
Yeah. So for me early, like even as a player, a lot of the stuff now I joke with other people I work with or players that I've been on the ice with, parents. I'm a much smarter player now than I was when I was playing those last years. And if I still had the body I had back then, I think I would be pretty efficient in the league. But biggest thing for me coming out of it was just the realization that there was so much about the game that I was playing that I didn't know. Like there were so many little small details that you almost go through that robotic, that approach where even later, Mike, I was so eager early on with the stuff we talked about earlier, all the skill development and the individual skills, and trying to, get better and better at those ages. I almost forgot about all that stuff near the end. And it was almost just going through the motions with it. And I know a lot of guys that I played with, we kind of get into that too. And you don't really think about the little things in your game or really sit back and kind of unpack them. So coming out of it, just kind of raw when it came to skill development. And I was fortunate enough to work with a good friend of mine in his company out of the gate and learning different things. But also the biggest hurdle for me was teaching. And I have a lot of respect and appreciation for teachers because even though you know something or you've done something for so long, how you relay that information or help kids understand is so important. And I was fortunate enough, the guy I was working for, Wade Burt, he was a teacher and he did a lot of, he showed me how to do that. And so I thought that was my first evolution with that, was just trying to learn how to teach properly, how to convey the message, how to ask questions, and how to support players. And then as we went on, I went through my whole thing with, using devices, and then later realizing I don't need these anymore, and using pressure, using players and on ice reads. And now where I am now, where it's just working and focusing on functional movement and scanning, looking past pressure, like we talked about, where you handle the puck on your hip, like all these different things. But I went from not really knowing anything and kind of just being green and being thrown into it to now having, all this knowledge from great people I've worked with along the way. So it's been interesting and it's changing all the time, but it's just because I'm always eager to learn and want, to take it a step further and evolve with the game. That's always changing.
I think that's pretty grand, man. I love the idea behind actually teaching. Like I call it the skills of coaching, like the actual skills of coaching, and they matter more than the knowledge. So many people go out there and they study super, super hard and they gain all of this knowledge. And I'm like, you're just a terrible coach. You can know the entire world of hockey knowledge or whatever, and you can be one of the worst coaches known to man. Like it doesn't matter. Like just because you have the knowledge does not mean you can coach. Two different things.
Yeah.
There's the teaching aspect and there's the knowledge aspect. Marrying them together, fantastic coach. Separate, either or, awful.
Yeah, absolutely.
Doesn't matter. Like you can communicate, but if the content's like, doesn't matter. I'd rather be able to teach than to just have the knowledge. I will say that. But like the actual teaching, like for example, asking questions, you brought that up.
Yep.
Massive, because now you're getting the other person thinking, and when they're thinking, they're personalizing the knowledge and actually absorbing it, or asking questions to confirm what you just said. So you're actually ensuring that learning is happening, because teaching and learning are two separate items. One you do, and the other one happens to someone. So figuring that out is also a groundbreaking thing for most people, I feel like. So I'm curious for you. I obviously released recently about the 2 worst questions of hockey. Does that make sense? And great, I'm blanking on my own questions here. Does that make sense? And any questions? Like those are my 2 least favorite questions. I'm like, it's just like mailing it in. Like you might as well just said like, I don't care for whatever you have to say. Here's what I have to say. I'm like, that's not. We got to meet the people where they're at. Like, okay, where did I lose? That's a much better question. Or hey, repeat that back to what I just said. And what are the 3 key items that we're about to work on? Like, boom, miles better on the ability to convey a message. So I absolutely love that. I'm curious where you're at with kind of the questioning, because I remember when I first started going through that process, I'm like, okay, questions are the key here. I was way too open in my questions. Like I'd come in here and like, okay, what went well, went terrible, and I just couldn't drill down to the key items quick enough. And I really noticed I needed to focus my questions much further. So that's where I currently my evolution as a coach. Curious where you are.
Yeah, I know. I think I was starting off too. Yeah, I coached outside of doing the skill development. I was working with our band and prep team at our academy right out of the gate as an assistant coach, and it was kind of almost that same thing. And the coach I had been coaching with, he was beyond kind of where I was at the beginning, so he had a really good way of getting players to bring forth that information and give the feedback and think about everything, which I thought was pretty cool to see that another example of how I could improve. But for me, yeah, it was, and this is what I do probably every practice, and any kids I've worked with, they know it, is whenever we do something, I always ask the question, like, especially with defensemen, and we're working on, let's say it's just retrievals. We go back and I give them, we're going through it, and then I say, okay, why is this important again? Like, why do you think would help your game? Or why do you think this is beneficial to you as a player? And then to hear that feedback and to hear them think, and then give me those answers back, I think is awesome. Those are the ones I ask all the time, is how would this help your game? Why do you think it would help your game? Because at the beginning, like you said too, I was doing the showing drills. Does this make sense? Do you understand? And it was almost like robotic or static and everything I was doing. Like the repetition was follow me and copy me. It's like almost that copy and paste, where I was completely taking away, and that was just me being green, but it was me.
And it's mimicking, really. It's not learning at all. They're just mimicking all the way. There's no actual like learning. Yeah, absolutely.
No, and then that was the thing. It was just like, do you understand? And of course, most kids, after they go through it, they're going to be like, well, yeah, I'm just mimicking you. I'm doing what you're doing. So then I started, and then we just started, after seeing that and how robotic and, static it was, I got to change something up. So then it was adding pressure. And then when they made mistakes and I got rid of the devices, I would say, well, what could you have done differently there? Or if it's wall pickups, we did wall pickups. And I was like, well, how do you think you could have picked up that and still moving your feet? Like, why do you feel like you had to stop there? Or how do you continue in motion and get off the wall and different things like that? So just creating conversations, I feel like lately, especially in the last year and a half of what I've been doing, that's really opened up my eyes. And it's, I've gotten the most out of players just by doing that and kind of getting them to think about everything and then give me feedback. And then they start figuring it out on their own and how they can, solve the problem or make adjustments.
Love this. And I love how you evolved away from using devices, because it's the same idea, kind of like mimicking. Like kids are going to get good at whatever you teach them to get good at, but we should be very aware of what we're trying to get them better at. Like getting better at reads, 100% worth it every time. Getting better at doing a toe drag around a cone, probably not. So I love how you were able to evolve around that and get to a point where you're having conversations. Like if a player can communicate what they're doing, it's the same thing as you're talking about. Like I thought I had an idea what I was doing when I was playing, but I really was a much better player when I started coaching. Well, now they're starting to coach themselves, and the opportunity for growth and for them to own their development and truly get the most out of it, through the roof. Love it. So I hope that everyone who is in the Edmonton area hits up Kane here, just starts a conversation, because it's going to be well worth it.
Yeah, it's pretty cool when you kind of see kids, that light bulb go off, and they start understanding the reason why. And it's just providing context. It's so simple as that, is just provide the necessary context of how everything you're doing can help a player in certain situations, scenarios. And as soon as you do that and you ask them and you get that feedback or the answers you're looking for, I don't think there's anything, there's nothing better when you're a coach and you can kind of see, like I said, that the light bulb go off and they get it. And then you see it translated into a game and you see them having success. And then the next session, they come back to you with a big smile on their face. And they're like, man, I used this what we worked on, and I did this differently and it worked. And seeing that kind of connection, I mean, it's it's pretty cool, and it's it's very rewarding being in that position.
And I quote Josh Mahura, who's having a phenomenal start to the season here. In my own opinion, should have a little more minutes than Mark Stahl at this point in his career, but hey, to each his own. What I liked most about working with Kane at Dynamic was the purpose and intent behind every drill we did and how everything was game transferable. The added benefit of being able to watch video and see the areas of opportunity in my game helps build my confidence as well. So I just love that we're talking about conversations, we're talking about intent, we're talking about reads, and how that leads into the game, feeling control, feeling that control and that preparedness for a player. I mean, that's gold. You know, if you're playing with confidence, you're playing well. If you're not, might as well just go home. Like, you're getting sent down sooner or later.
Yeah.
So that's phenomenal. Love that. I really would love to pivot here a little bit and talk specifically on developing and teaching defensemen. Because, like, no offense, I feel like defense is a lot easier to teach than offense. But there's so many freaking details that go into quality defense play. And it's almost like a personality. You need to kind of have the personality for defense, for the detail. And I got to say, I think defensemen love the game more than offensemen do. Like, they just hate to freaking lose. And they just want to stick it to the offenseman. Like, if you're a true defenseman, like, you love the game of hockey. The same thing with the goalies. I'm like, the best coaches are either goalies, defensemen, and if a forward finds his way in there, then what happened? Probably so.
Yeah.
So curious about just like teaching defensemen. I mean, there's some areas that we can talk about, but I don't want to bias the conversation. Kind of an idea where this is going, but I'll let you start on, you know, you're getting a defenseman for the first time. You're developing yourself as a defenseman. Where are you heading?
Yeah. So biggest thing for defensemen, and it's kind of the way I started, you know, for me too, was number one is how I work with defensemen is their ability to scan the ice or just see the ice in general, because they do see most of the ice aside from the goalie. And the biggest thing for defensemen is, and one of the most important skills in hockey is transition, in the sense of breakouts, neutral zones. So usually when I work with defensemen or we're developing, it's starting from the back out. So we start always retrievals, how you pick up pucks off the wall, move feet around the puck, your shoulder checking, the puck's the last thing you should look at when you get back for a puck, and all these different things, and finding multiple options, but then trying to do all those things while still moving your feet or maintaining movement. And then the next thing we move into transition, which I think is something that's maybe under coach or under, you know, utilized with a lot of players, especially at younger ages, is following the play up ice. I think a lot of defensemen I've worked with, when we make a transition pass, it's almost get caught in watching your nice pass and we stop moving our feet. And so a lot of defensemen, we work on, as soon as you transition the puck, if the puck's at the red, I should be at my blue. If it's at the blue line, I should be at the red line, and working up ice. And I did a lot of that with Josh. Like, one of Josh's biggest things in the summer, and when we went through video and started unpacking it, was, and he saw it for himself. We let the clips play and I clipped certain things, but he got to see that on transition, or even his D-to-D, and he wasn't supporting underneath in movement. Transition, he was staying back, so his gap was thrown off, and at the far blue line, he was standing still. So it's just, with the defenseman, I like to teach a lot of movement, moving your feet up ice, surfing, being on top of the puck. And I mean, there's so many different ways or things I could talk about with that, but the biggest thing is just creating more movement with defensemen. And, you know, contrary to defenders wanting to defend, I think as much as I love playing defense, I didn't like being my own end. So if I could be very good at transitioning the puck, it was a lot more fun playing in the other end. So I do that a lot with defensemen. If you're efficient with breakouts or transitions, you're playing less in your end. And good for those guys that like to defend the whole game, but it's just not as exciting when you're playing in there.
No, not at all. And I'd love to take a pause real quick and just explain what surfing is. Obviously, I know, but I bet there's a lot of listeners out there that are like, surfing for defensemen? I mean, I get that we're on water here, but it's kind of frozen.
Yeah, so it's almost like the whole theory where I got it was, surfing, like almost riding your wave of momentum in the offensive zone or just getting up ice. And it's usually for defense when we work on surfing. it's working from the middle out. So it's the same concepts you'd see with angling. The whole purpose of angling is to, steer and direct to bad ice. So with defensemen, surfing and getting up is not only helping you establish that early gap, which is so important, rather than conceding right away and giving up 10, 15 feet and just letting them get entry. It's okay if you're angling, but we don't want, as a defenseman, I mean, when I played and for defensemen now, I don't want you to have to concede or give up your blue line. So surfing is it's riding the wave of momentum. So even if you forward chips it by you, you're skating forward. Now you can forward defend, but it's just taking the ice available to take away time and space from the forwards, and then, killing plays early in the neutral zone. And I think it's so important because, again, less time in your end, you're playing more in the offensive zone, more fun, but it's just better for your overall game.
Yeah, and it's a great way to keep gaps closed if we're doing forward angling in the neutral zone or in the offensive zone, killing plays early, or at least not allowing opposition to get their feet moving. Or if they do chip it by you, at least you can own the puck lane a little bit where they've got to go around you, giving opportunities. The other thing that I think you can tell me if you agree or disagree on this is that defensive partners should be surfing together. You don't want one surfing and the other one not. Or if one surfs, the other one's got to fall back and kind of go over to the spot that person's coming from. Agree or disagree on the staying together on the same spacing where we're generally going together?
Yeah, I 100 agree with you 100%. I want defensemen to move together to support the puck, because if one is defenseman surfing, the other one's not moving, and that puck gets by him, that one's in trouble. You're chasing. But if you're both moving together, I just feel like the game, and the terms we've used or I've used before is you're almost on a tether together. You're always in motion together, because even if it's a simple and I get defensemen to surf at the blue line in the offensive zone under full possession, because two things for defensemen in the offensive zone is you should always catch a puck from low to high with, in motion or your eyes up, because then you have the advantage to get to the middle or get to that shot lane. But even if your defense partner's moving, they're already in motion too. So that D to D might even afford them the opportunity to get a shot lane off a soft catch. But yeah, working together is so important because you're always in support, get back to pucks. And it's a good habit we've instilled in our academy here. And also with Dynamic is just, I always get every rep I do with two defensemen, they're always moving together constantly.
Yeah. And I've seen some defensemen start to do this, and, obviously they're above where normal defensemen are at this point, but they fail to communicate it with their partner. And then they get burned as a unit because they're not on the same. It's okay, you got to leverage what you're doing, how you're trying to play the game to help your, overall unit, not just yourself. So just want to throw that out there as a warning for most people. If you're going to do this, you should probably have a conversation with who you're playing with of how this should operate. If you're coaching, let's talk about our defensemen being tethered, going together, all of these things. Otherwise, you're just leaving people on islands, and that's no good. No bueno.
No one wants that.
All right, so I want to go back to scanning a little bit, because we've talked about looking, and we used to call it shoulder check. I think scanning is probably a better idea because we're actually trying to pick something up. The whole point of the scan is you're picking something up, and what we're looking here for is available options. But we started talking about, okay, we see options, but what are the options we're looking for? Are we looking for our own teammates? Are we looking for where the pressure's coming from? What does that look like?
Yeah, so when you go back from the defenseman perspective, the number one thing is obviously most defensemen are smart enough or should know, based off the weight of the puck or how the puck is entering their zone, where the puck will most likely be. So I've taught a lot of defensemen that the last point of that you should leave up ice is your head, neck. So it's feet can move, that upper body rotation, but my eyes are facing the play coming towards me. So I'm, number one, looking for pressure, but then I'm looking for routes, and I'm also looking for that next play, or what I call play pass pressure. And that's super important, because we were talking about it earlier too, when defensemen get back for pucks, the last thing you want to do as a defenseman is get the puck and now solve a problem, or now try and figure out your plan. So it's being proactive in the sense that, and it's multiple scans, the play you saw first when you did that scan, or hard check that first time. And two, and you know the game of hockey, it's fast. It won't be there a second later. So it's constantly scanning, and we get defensemen looking both sides of the ice 3 to 4 times before they pick up the puck. And because things are always changing, but it's knowing where pressure is. But the most important piece for defensemen is looking at that play past pressure, because that's what you're trying to get the puck in whatever distance it is, 5, 10, 15 feet. If you're seeing these plays and making these efficiently and not just trying to problem solve or beat that forechecker one-on-one, which sometimes on a contested retrieval you'll have to do. But if you have time and you're looking for these plays, you have to look past pressure to see that play.
Yeah, absolutely love that. And moving as we're going up the ice here, one of the most common issues I see with young defensemen is they grab a puck, they start wheeling, skating up the ice, and they're just stuck on a wall. Like,
Yeah.
I believe you and I are in agreement that we want to make sure that we're getting off the wall at minimum into the dot lane. So the dot's all the way down the ice within that, virtual lane that's created, because now you've got chip off the wall, you can go right, you can go left, you can go center. You have a lot more options available to you, and it also forces a reaction from the opponents. So I'd love to dive into, okay, now we've got the puck, we're coming up ice.
Yeah. So number one that you said is absolutely at bare minimum, getting off the wall, super important for defensemen. But getting middle ice between the dots is so crucial for a defenseman at any age. And I've worked with young defensemen trying to get this concept, because as soon as you drift outside of dots, like you said, your options are limited. And when you make limited play or low quality plays, it's harder for you to climb the ladder as a defenseman, because teams are always looking for those players that can transition the puck, or they make the clean plays, the breakout defenseman. And if you're moving your feet, the beauty of it is, like you said too, is going through the dots up the middle. You're surveying the entire ice now. You can see majority of your options. You can go left, right, keep skating if you have the room, like you see everything. And then further to that point, with a lot of defensemen, I tend to want defensemen, or just players in general, like, you should always be a moving threat in hockey when you have full control, and it's puck positioning. I get a lot of defensemen to carry the puck on the side of their body. And the main reason for that too is that now they're a threat to make a play in any of those scenarios. They can pass left, they can pass, stretch pass, deception to the left, throw it to the right, open their hips and throw it back to their partner. There's so many different options that are available to you when the puck is on the side of your body or carrying in the hip pocket. But a lot of defensemen you see at younger ages, especially, they carry the puck in front. And not many defensemen can sling a pass on their backhand like Leon Draisaitl. I don't think many people can in general. So it's carrying up through the ice in the middle. But yeah, puck on the hip's the big thing. But it's just creating more options for yourself so you're not in trouble. And as soon as you're on that outside track, the plays you're making don't really connect as often. And you're usually either giving the puck up or you're giving somebody a bad puck.
Yeah, I always say, like, if you're going into pressure, you probably want it on your hip. If you're got an open space, now you can put it kind of in front of you with the ability to, because you're going to be able to skate into it, so you can really pull it back in a much faster fashion. So, I mean, there are times to overhandle it. So I think we can put that point. Like, there's times where you want to manipulate. Like, I think a great example is if you got a puck, you're going back, and you got a forecheck, and you're trying to do a weight shift one way or the other. Get them to bite a little bit, pull it back, boom, and you're gone the other direction. Like, that's awesome. Or, you got a tracker behind you, you got to defeat still and cut off. Like, there's some opportunities, but I think you're spot on for the most part. Getting that puck positioning, where that puck is located in relative to our body, is absolutely massive. Like, for me, that's why I think actually a puck focused skating development is going to be one of the next innovations in hockey, because we all do power skating, but we don't have any pucks. Okay, then we throw a puck in there, and people like don't know how to skate, and they forget everything you did with power skating. It looks a little bit better,
Yeah,
but it's still got to be in relative to the puck. So I think that's where we're heading next, and like putting a hip pocket's a great one. So for me, I do almost all of my skating development, like, unless it's we ignore the puck for now. Like, everything's done with the puck. You got to do a mohawk with a puck. You got to do linear crossovers with a puck. You got to pivot with the puck at all times, because it's massive. Where you position that puck really drives everything else. The next play, the next ability to really make the best decision possible in a situation. So I love hearing you talking about, hey, defenseman get in the hip pocket. You can make a play no matter what. You can time it out, especially in these small spaces. Phenomenal.
Mhm. Yeah, and it's just even like on that point too. And I was fortunate enough that when I got into this, even just 2 years ago, ran a camp with Mike Ellis, who, skill development coach with the Tampa Bay Lightning. And Mike was great, had me out there. We were on the ice for whatever it was, 18, 20 hours that weekend. And a lot of his teaching and his philosophy and what I've kind of instilled in my own development is functional movement, like you said, and adding pucks to any kind of skating piece, whether it's your weight shift, your opposite weight shift, working on puck protection, your upper body rotation, and just how you move the puck across your body in turns, but everything with a puck, because I think you're very limited, or you have a low ceiling if you can't skate or move with it be in motion and handle the puck properly. Like handling that puck, like we talked about at the beginning too, puck confidence, it just opens up the doors for so many different things in your game. Just being able to have that. So functional movement with the puck it's so important. And I think definitely another thing that's underutilized, but I think like you said, it's going to be a big thing coming down the pipe here in hockey. And I think a lot more people are going to pay attention to it.
Absolutely. Well, another thing I want to talk about here is just skating in general. Like a lot of players tend to skate too much into their heels. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on skating in your heels, maybe getting away from that. What is skating on your heels? Where does that cause breakdowns in players' games, etc.?
Yeah. So the easiest example for me to be able to use is just seeing it play out in my summer development with Josh Mahura there. When we were talking about Josh earlier, one of the things we noticed was, and it's not just that there's a lot of players, but what I noticed working with him is when you skate in your heels and it just means you're out of flexion. So a lot of the things I teach about with flexion is that knee bend, the hip, ankle, knee, everything being in alignment. And I feel like when you're in your heels, a lot of the times these players, especially on churns and they dig into that ice, they're lifting up their body, or if you're the opposite with your toes too, but most players in their heels, the body lifts, we lose our power. So for me, I usually try and teach players, it's the arches or the balls of their feet is where we want to focus a lot of our weight distribution so we can maintain that glide and we're not digging into the ice. So, and a defenseman too, it's backwards crossovers, getting away from, doing that big crossover dig in where you hear the defenseman scrape the ice on their transition, and more flipping heels and just that push. I think Nicholas was doing one with Montreal there not too long ago on Twitter. Same thing, that push back, like avoiding being in the heels and just maintaining the most amount of glide in turns, pivots, transitions, all of it. I just think it's heels, you lose power and you lose that dynamic ability in your game when you're in your heels.
Yeah, just you lose so much speed and ability to jump out of the movement. So now you almost have to have a movement to get back into good quality movement again. And it's a big difference. Yeah, absolutely. So that's absolutely massive. Man, I got one more thing I want to make sure we cover, and then we'll take this wherever you want to go with it. I just would love to talk about individual development plans. Like everyone talks about having them. Like, what are they actually? And what are maybe some big focuses for you as you see as pillars that are foundational pieces that allow for long-term development in a very positive fashion?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. So the IDPs, and then I'll just use kind of where I've been using it, is we've introduced this with our academy at NEX, and it's nice when a player understands individually with their game where they can make improvements. And I think a lot of that with a team, coaches don't always have the time to address all these different things, or you don't always have the time in a practice or a session to touch on these things. But the nice part we did with NEX was we brought in at the beginning of the year, coaches sent out a little bit of a form for goal setting for the players. And that was the first step for IDP. So your player identity, what you think you are, how you want to play, how you were last year, what changes you want to make. And so they get to know before the player even comes in, what this player envisions themselves as being, or what coaches through the trial process have an idea of what they are and see how they align or they don't align. And then what we did after that, after a 2-month segment, we just released IDPs for every player. And we use almost like skill zones. So different areas for defensemen and forwards. And within those zones, what's your zone potential in terms of, is it low, moderate, or high? So players then understand through, and this is great with coaches because coaches get to have these one-on-one meetings with them, because I have my ideas being, their player development coach and being the director of that. I work with all the players and I get to see these things. But the nice part is that players then begin to see, oh, I thought I was actually doing okay with retrievals, but the coach is giving this feedback and this is an area I need to work on or address. And the coaches provide the why. They create the conversation that we were talking about. So then players feel like it's not just the team, you have to help each individual player along the way, and you work with everybody. And that's what I love about the IDPs right now, is because coaches are having these conversations. The players get the feedback that they need. They can maybe have counterpoints where they think they may have been better in some areas than they weren't, or but it's just creating that conversation. And then players feel valued, which every player should on a team. And I think it's really created that nice starting point. And it's not perfect. Like it's our first year doing it, and it takes a lot of work. But I think once they have those conversations with the coach, it's been really beneficial for the players. And then the nice part is all our development sessions after, we can put players in specific areas where they need to make adjustments or work on different parts of their game. And it kind of gives us that blueprint moving forward. And then the nice part is in January, we get to see, well, have they made improvements and how far have they come?
Yeah, I love the ability to see the progress and like, hey, we said this was going to be a goal of ours. Hey, we've hit it. Nice job. You've done the work, and look how much better your game is because of it. That's awesome to see and awesome to hear how impactful and empowering it is for coaches and players alike. And I bet the parents even appreciate it. Like now they understand, oh, my kid's focusing in on this key element. So it creates a great alignment between all the stakeholders.
Yeah, no, and absolutely. And that's the biggest thing, is for players to see it. And then the nice part is too, at the end, I've given coaches, and we've worked with almost like a team report where you take those zones and you kind of see where the areas as a team are, because as a coach, you're worried. There's so much they got to worry about. They have the day-to-day, all these players managing all this, the schedules. And then when they get this back, they say, well, we haven't actually focused that much time on this. And this is a big area across the board where our players need to work on it. So then you can kind of shift your practice to these different areas to address it, or you can, whatever it is, small area games, flow drills, defense, forward specific, but now you can start shifting everything. And so you're building up the group together, but these kids that it was kind of a highlight for them that they need to work on, they can work on it, but they're also working in that team setting too. So but yeah, progress is everything. Kids need to see that, they need goals, they need these things that they have to start shooting for. And when they get to see that next report and everything's kind of maybe an improvement here, there, I mean, there's nothing better than a kid that sees that and all their work's paid off.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right. Well, that is the end of my list for this evening. Anything you want to touch on or anywhere you want to
go? Not off the top of my head. I mean, there's just so much to hockey, and I think a lot of the more research, and we talked about it too, like it's, the more research you do, the better in this game, especially because it's constantly evolving. I always challenge people to put the time in and, try and understand, or also just be around other players, anything, and take information from everybody you can. Because when I started, I was fortunate enough to be around a lot of great hockey minds that were willing to help me along. And I think it's super important to be able to give back to other people doing that, but always push yourself to kind of follow this game that, like I said, that's always changing, because it's a pretty cool game. It's crazy having gone through it and now seeing how little I did know when I went through it. But no, it's always nice talking hockey. So I really appreciate it. And yeah, I hope hopefully be on again in the future, but it's been great.
This has been fantastic. If you want to get a hold of you, where can they find you?
We're Dynamic Hockey Development in Edmonton, Alberta here. And you can find us online through our website, naxhockey.com, and Dynamics in there. We're on Instagram, social media, Twitter, and Facebook, I think, as well, even though I don't know how many people use Facebook anymore, but we're on there. But yeah, we got camps running all the time. We have spring development camps coming up in the new year. We have a bunch of summer development camps. And I think the nice part about our camps too is we tend to keep it quite small so we can maximize repetition, and player to coach ratio is always really nice. So if you're looking for defense specific stuff too, we have that. But yeah, people can find us anywhere online.
Wonderful. Love this. Well, Kane, really appreciate you coming on. Perfect for an Oilers fan right now with the Banter there. So couldn't be better. Good luck to your team. I've had Joel Jackson with the Oilers on before. It seems like there's a lot of good stuff brewing up there from a research and technical standpoint. So we just need to get you guys down to Columbus, Ohio here, jackets or anything else, and just out of those terrible winters. Find yourself a better place to live, eh?
Yeah,
Better than winter peg. Let's be honest. Let's throw the winter peggers under the bus first.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, we're not as bad as there, but yeah, I mean, I love it here. It's home, and the Oilers, the up and down. I'll keep riding that roller coaster with them, but hopefully we can find some success here sooner than later. I know the city desperately wants it, so hopefully it comes here soon.
Awesome. Thanks, man. Take care.
Thank you.
That concludes this week's episode. Thanks for joining us here at Hockey IQ. If you haven't already, take a quick moment to hit that subscribe button, give us a thumbs up, and drop a review. If you want to be a great teammate, even recommend us to a friend. You can follow us at Hockey's Arsenal on Twitter and Instagram. Check out the website, hockeysarsenal.com, where you can subscribe to the weekly newsletter. You won't regret it. Catch your buttes here next week for a brand new episode.